A warning that the middle class will disappear. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your hashtag not sponsored cheap coffee, and let's have a look at this article. A warning from a property investor that the middle class is about to disappear here in Australia. So let's bring this article up. So the middle class is going to get wiped out. Property investors' grim warning. Now, what's the definition of the middle class? It's, well, if you go far and far back, the old school definition of the middle class is those exceptionally wealthy but who are not of royal blood or royal lineage. The majority of us are still working class. I think in contemporary times, we'll say it's those that are property owners. That's the middle class now in Australia. And there really is a stigma attached to if you don't own property in this country. It's just how it is. We're meant to be egalitarian society. Everyone wants to be a landlord, but no one wants to be a renter. And there's a stigma associated with it. Look at all the not in my backyard crowd. All these old boomers, they bought their houses when they were dirt cheap, reaped a massive benefit and reward from it, and now don't want anything to change. But then in the next sentence will complain that their poor kids can't afford a house. So how will their grandkids ever afford a house? And yet they're the ones getting in the way of the whole process. Oh. So a property investor who is worth $1 million or worth millions of dollars has issued a grave warning to a huge number of Australians. So he's an alarming prediction that Australia's middle class will be wiped out within the next decade. Daniel Walsh, who resides in a $7 million mansion in Sydney's northern beaches and owns over 30 investment properties, said the demographic could become the working poor by 2035. Yeah, I mean, this is the K-shaped economy that we have here in Australia. And this stems from a lot of things. I mean, let's chat about this. Fundamentally, one of the biggest issues we have in Australia is a disincentive to innovate, a disincentive to start a business, to create jobs, to employ people. When, well, you've got a whole sector that is pretty much guaranteed by the government, which is the housing sector. There's not going to be any politician that will ever get voted in Australia advocating for such massive changes to housing that it would cause a significant crash to the market. I'd happily bet a carton that if we ever see even the beginning thoughts of a significant correction in housing, there will be government intervention to prop up that sector. We saw the COVID pandemic. What happened there with the lockdowns? How did the government stimulate the economy to ensure it kept going? What was it? Homekeeper, mortgage keeper, housekeeper, job keeper. They threw money at the construction sector. So for 15 grand, you spend 150 grand, you get a 15 grand handout. And they would get that back in the GST on everything that you purchased anyway. Brilliant. It was brilliant. And it worked. It stimulated the housing sector. We saw it in the building approvals yesterday when we looked at the ABS stats. But the problem is, the warning here that the middle class are going to be wiped out. This is the continued two-speed economy. You've got people who have access to the means to get into the property market, and now more and more that's becoming a generational thing, where if your parents have means or access or enough money, you'll have the younger generation will get that boost into the housing sector, because it is a bloody struggle. It was a struggle to save a deposit even before we've had these insane rental increases here, Brisbane, on all of Australia. You know what? Let me bring up SQM rental prices. Let's have a look at those. Okay, I haven't checked those out in a while. We'll bring that over here. I'll jump down to here. Okay, let's have a look at this. Brisbane as well. I mean, there you go. Look at that jump right there. All houses, $700. Combined, $700 a week. 3-bedroom house, nearly $700 a week in Brisbane. Okay, what's the 10-year change per annum change, 5.7%, 5.1% for a 3-bedroom house. So back in 2019. I need to switch to Chrome. It's not like an Edge. But you can see here we're hovering around the $400 mark. And now it's doubled in 5 years' time. 2020, $400, give or take, $450, let's say. Look at that. The rent's now $700. That's a fair chunk of your disposable income. Whose income from their business do you think has increased that much in that period of time? Let's have a look at some other cities as well, guys. Here, what do we want to look at? Go to property. So weekly rental index. Sydney, $720 all units. All houses, $1,000. Melbourne, $767. But Brisbane's higher than Perth, $826. Well, that's overheated because of the mining over there, guys. But still, that's what about? Let's look at Adelaide. Adelaide, the poor cousin. Okay, Adelaide is meant to be the affordable city. You can still get a great quality of life. You can still lots of opportunities to work. Sure, they don't know what a beach is, and they've never seen a wave in their life, and everything's built out of concrete because they don't have timber. But I mean, there you go, guys. Look at that. 2020, 5 years ago, we're hovering around $400. Boom, $700, pretty much, give or take. So that's a huge increase in your rent, whose wages have gone up by a similar amount. So trying to save a deposit for a house on top of this, has there been a historical period in time where we've had a similar increase in rental prices? In living memory, has this been the worst that it has been? That's something for you to consider there. When you've got generations where people are saying, work harder, give up on the smashed Ave. Yeah, okay, that's great. But, your rent going from $400 to to $700 in 5 years it's a game changer. So you're going to have people that'll be locked out of the market because they just won't have the means to get into it anymore. We're already at a point where you need 2 people in a household to work, just the service alone. And this is going to have dangerous consequences to the fabric of our nation moving forward. So I've been trying to tell people, because the middle class is going to get wiped out, not from CPI level, but because of assets. When he talks about assets, he's referring to homes. And he believes that the middle class people who don't jump into the property market could miss out forever. Well, then this is the thing, you're not middle class anymore. You're becoming the rental class. You're not the owning class, not the landlord class. This is the thing. We're not going to have the same quality of life as our parents had. Previous generations won't get it. I'm a millennial generation. We won't have the same quality of life as our parents had. You'll need significantly more education. Well, actually, yeah, let's discuss this topic as well. Degree inflation for jobs. Now that everyone has a university degree, it's handed out like paper. It's no longer special. It's becoming demanded for more and more positions. I was talking to my mother-in-law. She's a radiographer. Radiographer? The technician, not a radiologist. Yes, a radiographer. Just the X-ray technician. And when she started, because she was sharing her story with our daughter for a school interview, she was working while she was studying. It was an apprenticeship type of thing. So she could work and study at the same time. Sure, you had to study at nighttime, but you could get into a role, you could get into a job, you could earn money while you were studying. And the requirements weren't as high. The degree wasn't as significant, wasn't as long. Now you need a bachelor to get in there. Now people use it as a stepping stone to get into medicine. So the problem is they're getting a shortage of people who stay in that role because they keep jumping on and on. Is there any benefit from pushing the qualifications up even higher and higher? Architecture. I came through with 2 bachelors. I had a Bachelor of Built Environment and a Bachelor of Architecture. Now it's a master's. This happened just when we were going through the course, and being the cynical bastard that I am, I'm telling my friends, this is obviously just because they can charge a higher fee for a master's qualification, attract the international students here to say they're getting a master's, than they can for a bachelor. The thesis they had to write was shorter than ours. I think it's leading to any better outcomes. So that's another thing as well. You've got a previous generation that didn't have all the burdens to get into the market. They didn't have the same education burdens. Hell, you even have a whole bunch that had Whitlam Free University education. So times are not the same. I don't get me wrong. I still argue for independent, hard work, but I can see why people just don't get over it. I can appreciate why millennials are going, nah, I'm out, cashing out, going. I can see why viewers of the channel comment that they retire overseas. The middle class is the socioeconomic group where the working between the working and upper class. In Australia, that typically means you own a home, you earn a decent wage, and you can afford an annual holiday and have private health insurance. You're not certainly rich, but you're comfortable, educated, and can save up for most things you want. So he says he fears, and he even went so far to predict, that the demographic will soon morph into the working poor as home ownership slips away from them. The 35-year-old knows a thing or two about property, with a real estate portfolio worth $45 million, $8 million available in various offset accounts, and $20 million owed to the bank. So he knows what he's doing. He said he was confident that real estate would boom again, that he's bought more than 15 properties in the last 12 months. I've been going pretty hard this year, he said. Due to immigration, interest rates, the new government scheme for first-home buyers, the market is poised to surge. One thing I would add to that is the long-term strategic planning for various regions around Australia. You look at the Southeast Queensland Regional Plan, the amount of land that they are retaining to ensure we still have farmland and green space. Housing needs land too. Look at, there's another topic I want to discuss another day, the shrinking block sizes in Victoria. Who here grew up on a quarter-acre block? Now they're like 360 square meter size blocks as the average size. There's no room for a backyard. So then you've got no room for a backyard. You've got no room for planting. So the microclimate is going to be incredibly hot. So then you've got more people using air conditioning, more power being generated, more people advocating for interventions into housing to make them more thermally efficient because we've got no shade outside. So that means housing gets more expensive. That means blocks get smaller. That means housing gets more denser. It's a repeating cycle. And then you've got kids who never play in a backyard, who never go outside. I was warning everyone about this 18 months ago. CPI inflation will turn into asset inflation, he said. People are trying to save money, but I'm warning you that inflation will trend down and then interest rates will fall and then the property market will increase. The problem is they're trying to save money to just get a foot into the door of the housing sector. You need a deposit, what, 20% of $1 million, $200,000. If you're a household earning $200,000 before tax, when you take tax, cost of living, how much are you going to save? What if you got kids? As much as I say kids don't cost money, you do have to spend something on them. So he said this surge would ultimately lead to the demise of Australia's middle class as property prices are becoming increasingly out of reach. He said that Aussies are getting distracted by rising grocery bills and are not looking at the bigger picture. Of course, well, they never look at the bigger picture. That's why we get the election results that we do. He predicts that property prices nationwide will increase by between 7 and 8% in 26, and that could change the game. I think it already has. I think it already has, to be honest. If prices continue to rise, people on ordinary wages will eventually be unable to afford a home. Well, what's an ordinary wage? Let's go here, ABS. Oh, that's funny. Someone's just harvesting the ABS data and showing it as their own website. Anyway, we'll have a look here. We'll go to their website. The average weekly earnings, $2,000. What's that over a year? 100 grand. Give or take. Why is public higher than private? Wonder why. So remember, you need 2 people in a household. So you're an average household of 200 grand, like I said. That's really hurts the middle class. What really hurts the middle house is a house going from 800,000 to 1.5 million, he said. Middle class people want to own a home because a home is the ultimate form of stability that's getting taken away very quickly. I'd agree. I'd also argue it is very important to have a comfortable retirement. If you own your own home, you can get away with living on the pension. It's not going to be luxurious, but you're not going to be on the verge of being destitute like a lot of people. They're trying to rent, it's impossible. At the moment, he said Australians are still able to buy, but they're just having to shift their expectations. The quality of the type of property people are buying is getting less and less, and I think it's only going to get worse, he said. Instead of buying a family home with a backyard, Aussies are opting for a duplex or an apartment, and he predicts that the middle class will be priced out of home ownership altogether by 2035. He said, one only has to look overseas to see how quickly home ownership can become an unattainable goal for working class people. Pointing to London, we don't want to compare ourselves to London. I can't believe that hasn't Trump fixed London yet? But he's argued that the chance of owning your own home is basically non-existent in 2025. Well, I guess if he's comparing Sydney to London, you're right. The aspiration to buy a home is pretty much dead. And there are generations of renters, and it's going to get to that point in Sydney. He said, okay, he is comparing to Sydney. Well, this is similar to Europe. We could also make the argument that the middle class, the working class people who could come to Australia to build a family, get a home, live a good quality life, that's a short period when the colony was transforming, when population was booming. I know people say there's so much land in Australia, but most of it's shit. It's where people don't want to live. Sure, you could move to a rural town and watch your kids have no opportunities, get onto drugs and alcohol and what other mischief, or you can live somewhere where people actually live, where there are opportunities and jobs and education. He predicts that prices aren't going to come down in Sydney because there are enough people who have money to pay more. He's already seeing the rise in his own portfolio, which is worth $4 million more this year. He warned that middle-class people need to start shifting their mindset between housing crisis, because the housing crisis is just going to get worse. Yeah, I think this guy's on the money. Honestly, I agree with him. I don't think any of the political games or machinations that our politicians are saying is going to make any difference. Their calls to reduce migration, the 2 main parties are not paying any heed. They're not going to change. There's too many people with a vested interest to keep the status quo. And there's too many Australians that want the status quo. Sure, they'll bitch and moan about how their children can't afford a house. But words are cheap. Watch how people vote. I know of quite conservative people voting for Greens because they want to keep their investment properties expensive. As prices keep going up, the standard of living is going to go down. You'll be a millionaire but living in a unit. The middle class mindset is to limit debt and buy a property and pay it off and make everything about savings. He argued this doesn't work anymore because people's savings won't outpace the market. The idea that you should save for an owner-occupier home in a suburb you want to live in doesn't work anymore for the average person. Here's a message for Aussies who are saving for homes right now. If you've got enough for a deposit anywhere, so he's advocating rent vesting. Don't just keep saving and hold out to purchase a property where you want to live. By the time you save an extra 20 grand, it could be too late. You don't want to get 3 to 4 years down the track and the area you want to live has gone up an extra 400,000 and you've saved 40K. Well, I would also argue this is the problem with superannuation. We're being forced to lock our money away so the union and bank-controlled super funds can play with it, take fees off it, set up propaganda media outlets using those funds, have cushy board positions using those funds. And then you're going to have to compete with them because they'll get into rent vesting to solve the housing crisis. You'll be competing with your own bloody money. Oh, so he said that people should use their savings now to buy in an area they can afford and rent where they want to live. Savers will get wiped out because you have it in the bank and it won't be enough. If you're an Aussie waiting around to buy, relying on saving up more cash to do it, you'll be screwed by the end of 26. Property prices are growing quicker than people save, he said. If you can get in, get in. Okay, so let's have a bit of a chat about his little thing here, eh? I think he's on the money. I think he's on the money. You may be pissy and jealous that the guy has 30 properties, but he's not. He's spitting facts. He's dropping facts right there on people. He's telling the truth. I can't see a massive correction happening. How many years have people been waiting for predicted falls and they haven't materialized? And we're comparing it to, maybe, here's the thing. We should compare property prices to US dollars. Can you see any government restricting foreign ownership here in Australia? Can you see any of the major two parties doing it? Maybe if we have a significant political shift, and the only party talking about any of these things, about the migration impact on housing, seems to be One Nation. I mean, are they going to get enough numbers to push any change? I seriously doubt it. To be quite honest, I think they're a good hedge against the Greens' influence in the government. I think we need greater variety in our political system. We don't all just want the same type of people. Politics should be an art of compromise. But I would argue you've got too many people with a vested interest in keeping the status quo in property and keeping it higher and keeping stability in the market. Essentially, that's what everyone wants. The banks are protecting themselves with their LMI. The government's now stepping in to protect the banks again by paying for a big chunk of it for people. Housing has gone up instantly. You've got professionals with significant salaries who are going to struggle to get housing. You've got a whole country, frankly, where there is a disincentive to innovate, to do anything other than get into housing. How many of you have worked a whole year for a business, had all this money coming in, all the stress, all the bullshit to deal with, and then you made more on a property investment? I still remember my former landlord. He was an industrial designer, had a firm, built some beautiful work. A lot of public furniture, things around our cities. If you're in Brisbane, you're guaranteed you've seen it, or you've seen a knockoff that someone did from overseas and brought over. And he was telling me that he makes his money. It's not in the business. Because the young guys that were working there wanted to own a part of the business. He said, the money isn't in the business. The money is in the premises. You'd buy a commercial premises, do it up, get R&D credits for building installations on part of the building, then sell it and then shift and do it again and do it again and do it again. That's how he made his coin, how he made his big money. It's in property. That's the Australian way. So will the middle class disappear? I think it's the K-shaped speed of our economy is going to change. You'll have, once we see this intergenerational wealth transfer, Australia is going to become more and more like certain parts of Europe, where there'll be a class of people that are home owners and those that are not. Now we just need to hope, pray, and push to ensure that it's individual peoples owning these properties. I'd rather have 1 million mum and dad professionals owning properties than large megacorps. Anyway, let me know your thoughts, opinions on this one. And what do you think? Think the middle class is going to disappear? Will it get destroyed? Or is the property investor just spooking his bag? I don't know, guys. I think he's on the money. Sydney is not going to be affordable for normal people much longer. And I mean, how often can you tell people, come to Brisbane? Move to Brisbane. It's not that much cheaper now. A shit box is getting close to $1 million. At least we got sunlight. Get the vitamin D. That'll be good for you. Take care, guys. Have a great day. I'll see you in another episode of HeiseSays. Bye for now.